I am Financial Information Man. Hear the story about your bankers association, how they planning so they can get you through this recession. In this time of panic, educating you in this pandemic, through rainy days too. Now it's online, step up to the plate. Come talk to us, we'll open the gate. Using the internet as the new gateway for the new normal. So work with us, we turning the frown you have upside down. Financial Information Man, I am Financial Information Man, I am Financial Information Man.
Good evening and welcome to the studios of NTN. My name is Vernal Joseph and I am your moderator for this evening. I'm also a representative of the St. Lucia Association of Banks. In the midst of building financial resilience in the COVID-19 environment, the Bankers Association of St. Lucia, in collaboration with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, celebrates Financial Information Month in October yearly. As part of our financial education programs, I'm pleased to open this panel discussion addressing the theme, Leaving Through Rainy Days, How to Manage Your Money in Challenging Times. Times of crisis brings uncertainty, and COVID-19 pandemic is no exception. This year, Financial Information Month is even a more important event and an opportunity for public engagement in this climate and in these challenging times. The goal of this discussion is to offer guidance on management of resources and creation of priority spending plans. In studio this evening with us are 4 panelists. I will start my introduction from my extreme right. Mr. Lester Wilson has over 30 years of experience in the banking sector, having previously been employed with Barclays Bank PLC and CIBC, First Caribbean International Bank Limited, for over 25 years. He has held many senior positions, including branch manager, senior branch manager, and MSME manager. Mr. Wilson possesses over 20 years of sales experience, including retail and commercial sales. He has worked in the offshore sector for just over 1 year, where he held the position of operations manager. Presently, Mr. Wilson is employed with First National Bank, St. Lucia Limited, as the SME manager. He previously held the role of project manager with the responsibility of setting up a competency unit, which is specifically focused on serving the needs of the micro, small, and medium enterprises sector here on island. Next to Mr. Wilson is Mendessa Morrison, entrepreneur, marketer, project manager. Mendessa Morrison emerges from a background of 10 years in the field of marketing and has experience in executing projects across the region. In 2013, Mendessa founded her first business, Shoe Rehab, a modern-day shoe restoration and enhancement company, and shortly after branched out her second business venture, the Foot Spa. Throughout her entrepreneurial journey, Mendessa was granted the opportunity to represent St. Lucia at the Caribbean Young Entrepreneurship Summit in Barbados, and was also awarded Young Entrepreneur of the Year and the 2016 St. Lucia Business Awards. Ms. Morrison is passionate about encouraging other young entrepreneurs like herself. She is one of the advisory committee members for the upcoming GEW Get in the Ring competition and currently sits on the board of directors for the Youth Enterprise Equity Fund. Next to Mendessa, we have Mr. Cornelius Sidoni. He's a career banker with over 23 years of experience in the financial services industry. Mr. Sidoni joined the St. Lucia Development Bank in 1997 and moved to the Bank of St. Lucia during the merger of St. Lucia Development Bank and the National Commercial Bank. He has held several supervisory and management positions, including project officer, business advisory officer, corporate accounts executives, student loans coordinator, and branch manager. Over the past 15 years, Mr. Sidoni managed the Waterfront, Soufrière, and Grosley branches. He is now into corporate banking, holding the position of Deputy Senior Manager at the Corporate Credit Services Department. And right next to me, Ms. Sunita Daniel. Sunita Daniel is the CEO of Export St. Lucia, the agency responsible for trade and export development in St. Lucia. She previously served as the economist and chief planning officer for agriculture in St. Lucia, and more recently was employed by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization as the program liaison officer. Sunita is also a past teacher of the advanced level economics at the junior college level. She has wide experience in the areas of public policy, agricultural planning, and development. Panelists, I thank you for being present with us today.
Thanks.
So, in our first segment, we will focus on the impact of COVID-19 in St. Lucia. And in this first segment, we will direct our questions to the bankers. Cornelius and Lester, from your perspective, how has COVID-19 affected financial institutions in St. Lucia?
Thank you so very much, Vina.
You're most welcome.
Good evening, viewers. It is an absolute pleasure to be here this evening and to be part of this esteemed panel and to discuss such an important topic, living for rainy days, how to manage your finances in challenging times. Quite appropriate. As we all know, these are really unprecedented times. The COVID-19 pandemic has wreaked havoc in our economy. We have seen it all happen in 2020. Things we've never seen before. Lockdown, closure of borders, restrictions, protocols, masks, physical distancing. The mainstay of our economy, the tourism industry, was seriously impacted. Cruise ship industry virtually collapsed. No ships at the harbor. And this is all resulted, cascaded to the other industries, and this has resulted in a decline in the GDP and an increase in unemployment. Now that is to contextualize things, to be able to directly answer your question for now. So most families have been affected by this economic downturn. And just to put it in context, looking at the statistics, out of 12,600, approximately 12,600 self-employed persons in St. Lucia, it is believed that 50% of them have lost their primary source of income. Wow. That is significant. And in the accommodation sector, where it is believed there are about 13,000 persons, over 60% of them would have either lost their job or would be on rotation.
That's quite significant.
Right. So that would, of course, affect a lot of those people who would have had loans and other business at the banks. So that would certainly affect the banks. And how would the banks now, what did the banks do to respond to that, to try to work with our customers? One of the things that we did, of course, was to provide moratoriums to our customers. It is important that I explain to our viewers moratorium. Because what a moratorium is a deferment or postponement of your repayment of your loan. So the loan does not stop. And that is very important.
Sure.
So our customers had choices. We gave them choices. Hey, you could either say you don't want the moratorium, and I dare say those people who may not have selected the moratorium may be in a better position. Those who selected may have ended up with a better cash flow, and that was important, and that is why they were given that option. And the moratorium could have been, hey, you don't pay anything at all for the next 6 months, or you get a moratorium on the principal, so you would pay the interest. That is a little better, because at the end of the moratorium period, your principal would be where it started at the beginning of the moratorium period, if you were paying the interest. So that would have worked relatively well for our customers. So contextualizing it also, the extent to which those moratoriums have been given. Moratoriums valued at up to $1.6 billion have been given in this little country of ours, St. Lucia. And I say all of that to let you know how it impacts the banks. Because what happens is, of course, all of that money that would be coming to the banks on the repayment of those loans is no longer coming in. So it immediately impacts the cash flow of the banks. So you have a lot less cash flow, and that affects your liquidity. Fortunately, the banks were quite liquid prior to COVID-19. So it has affected, but not that badly. Secondly, and importantly, provisions had to be made, and a provision is an allowance with the view that the customer may possibly default. So say, for example, you take a loan of $10,000 and then you're unable to pay it because you may have lost your job. The bank would now have to make a provision, say, for example, 10%, $1,000, and that comes out directly from their profits. So can you imagine, in the context of the $1.7 billion, what that would do to the profitability of banks? But we don't really know the total impact yet, because what has happened is the customers have been provided with moratoriums. The moratorium period is about to end. We're not sure how many of those people will be able to repay the loans after that period. How many of them may still be employed, how many of them may not be employed. So that has actually impacted, all those things would have impacted in a very serious way the income of the bank, the bottom line for the bank. So some of the banks may be under serious pressure by the end of this year or next year when we get the true picture.
Wow.
So this is, in a nutshell, the macro position.
True. Thank you so much for that information. Mr. Lester, is it possible for you to inform us further of how the financial institutions have been impacted in St. Lucia?
Well, just to add a bit to what Mr. Sidoni has just said. In fact, he has set the background. He has told us basically what the situation is in the economy. Okay, but with the job losses, the reduction in revenue, and the high level of uncertainty that the pandemic has created, you find that most people now have been very guarded now in making investments.
True.
As a result, this has created a reduction in demand or reduced demand for loans. This would also affect the bottom line of profitability of financial institutions. Okay, on the operation side, you find that COVID-19 has forced financial institutions to make changes to their operations to ensure the safety of not only their staff, but the customers coming into the bank.
Sure, you're so right.
And this has resulted in increased expenses. We as if you enter the bank, you will see, for example, the remodeling, the social distancing that has been created, the barriers for the plexiglass to protect both the customers and the staff, and also the hand sanitization with the machines, and to ensure the safety of our customers and staff working in that environment. Added to this, there has also been some financial institutions have already begun spending in improving their technology so that they can increase their capacity to provide online services to their customers, so that to ensure a much safer environment. So basically, that's it.
Oh, wow, thank you so much for that information. And I know that our viewers will be appreciative because most of us never look at this in this light. The cost to the banks have been quite significant. But let's just take it from another perspective and look at the small to medium enterprise. Mendessa, you are a small business owner in St. Lucia. From your perspective, how do you think COVID-19 has impacted businesses like yourself in St. Lucia?
Good evening, viewers and panelists. COVID-19, large or small, I don't think there is a single person or entity across the globe that hasn't been affected directly or indirectly with this pandemic. And some of the cries that you hear from the larger corporations, it trickles down all the way to the sole proprietor. It's just magnified. You find that by nature, smaller businesses may not have the cash reserves to carry them through the next quarter or the next 2 quarters.
Sure.
So those who may have managed to make it thus far, you know, there's a little bit of anxiety, and just you're hopeful that you could make it across. And that in itself can only be achieved by being more diligent with your whole operations. The reality is that COVID-19, it just hit us. It wasn't something that, like a natural disaster, we would have planned for or put things in place, be prepared. It just hit us. So you find a lot of smaller businesses may have been at different stages in their growth. So you have those that may have just been starting off. You have those who may have just committed to taking a loan to expand their business. And now it's like, what do I do? So I think the wide cry is that businesses in general have definitely been affected, and small businesses, of course, were no different.
Thank you so much, Mendessa, for this information. And we will go over to Sunita on a personal view, based on what you've seen around you, or maybe from your own personal experience. I would appreciate if you could at least inform our viewers of how COVID-19 has impacted individuals in St. Lucia.
Thank you. Good evening, viewers. Good evening, panelists. I think Mr. Sidoni gave us a pretty good picture at the macro level, how COVID has impacted the economy. At the micro level, it always goes down to the micro level. And at the very micro level, you have the individual who's impacted. And so those high levels of unemployment we've seen in tourism, they're not only secluded to the tourism industry, but also on the wide variety of other services that are related to tourism. Tourism is the mainstay of our economy, and therefore you find that a lot of other businesses do go around tourism. So photography, taxi drivers, these are all individual persons who are impacted by COVID. So there's this large level of unemployment in the country. There's also quite a bit of uncertainty in the country. Even though you're still employed, you're still worried about what's going to happen. There's still a lot of concern about how long is COVID going to last? There's still a lot of concern about when is a vaccine going to come in. And so if we're told in 3 months or so there may be a vaccine, we're still told that you have to live with COVID for the next 2 years. What impact will that have on the economy? All of those things really worry an individual. And so it's not only at the financial level that you're concerned, but also emotionally. So it puts quite a bit of strain on an individual. And so it brings up a lot of questions for our country about mental health wellness, and how are people coping, what's happening, do they have support systems available, what's going on. And a lot of people are quite anxious, and there's quite a bit of anxiety as to how they could survive. The other thing we find happening with this COVID environment is that people are asked to make a lot of sacrifices. At the individual level, we're used to living a certain life. And it's kind of difficult at sometimes to tell people you need to cut down on your luxury, the spending is not there anymore. I think for us and as individuals, and what I hear a lot of persons speaking about, and even from personal experience, it would be the social distancing, the long lines that we have to access as individuals to get into businesses. So you go to the supermarkets, you go to the banks, you go to any business place, you do have to do that social distancing. And we understand why, and we appreciate why it has to be done. But alternatively, there's this question of I have to be exposed whether it's raining or whether the sun is blazing. I have to be standing outside and be waiting to get served from a business. So these are all things which really impact the individual, and these are all things that we have all had to deal with, and we have had to learn to live with during COVID.
True. We've all seen and we've all shared, and we can see that everyone has been impacted in one way or another. The financial institutions, businesses, and also the man on the street. We are now due for a short break, and when we get back, we will discuss present opportunities in the midst of our this challenging time, COVID-19.
Cette lisi ka registre vermin corona ek I ka fait mouvement ek an chay vitesse tan chaque canef ka kouye pour vigilance publique la fait wolo parler en place publique kon bon lanme base ti boutique changer distance sociale 6 pieds rodyon à l'autre I ka travail tan si vous sentez qu'on pas cordial, quarantine ko, pas en contact et puis l'autre en cas où tu es exposé. C'est un écuyer free one ou ben n'importe clinique yo pour. Les pays a dimi à clé, ça veut dire les supermarkets, pharmacies et puis ATM yo accessible avant c'était souhait. Pays à clé en plein. Ça veut dire tout bagay fermé à 24 heures. Servi protocole comme sorti par bureau indication santé. Nous tout ensemble, ça sauver vermine corona. Si nous tout servi jidla à toutes les.
Together let us win this war. Say we shall be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
Welcome back. In case you've just joined us, we're discussing living through rainy days, how to manage your finances in challenging times. This panel discussion is being brought to you by the Bankers Association of St. Lucia in collaboration with NTN and also powered by Flow. Please note that your questions will be addressed from our viewers. Hence, you should WhatsApp your questions to 460-8778. This number is also located to the bottom of this screen. In spite of this pandemic, there are still lots of opportunities in any rainy situation. And I'd like to pose this question to my panelists. In the midst of this global pandemic, do you see any opportunities in the path of recovery?
I really think that COVID, with all of the drama that COVID has brought to us, and all of the difficulty, it has really brought forth the resilience of people. It has really brought forth the innovation. I think when people are pushed in a corner, that's when we become the most innovative, because we need to learn how to survive. I really ascribe to that view.
Sure.
And I think that we've seen it a bit in COVID, and a lot of individuals have now started turning their hobbies into something that they can make a profit out of. So I know quite a few friends of mine who now go into cake making, and they sell cakes as a living, and they've lost their job in the tourism sector. We see a lot of young women, and if you go on the boulevard, you'll see a lot of them there who are making face masks. We see new opportunities in making hand sanitizers. So these are all new businesses that individuals can actually go into because of COVID, and things that we would have not thought about doing before until we were hit with COVID. I think the other thing that we've now seen is that almost everybody in St. Lucia is now a farmer. I can tell you, everywhere you turn, everybody is growing their own food. Everybody is doing some backyard farming. I see people with their cucumbers and sweet peppers and so on. And I think that's really important, because it not only brings down your bills at the supermarket, but it's also the healthier alternative. Persons are eating a lot healthier. People are consuming a lot more of what they produce themselves. And I think that's really an important thing. We've also found persons spending a lot more time with their families. You have a lot more time to eat healthier, focus on yourself, focus on your family and your children. You have a lot more time to exercise. And a lot of persons you'd see say that they spend a lot more time on their families and the community. So I think these are all really great opportunities that have come out of COVID. Traditionally, we always use the internet for entertainment, Facebooking, whatever.
That is
now
true.
You see a lot more delivery services coming on board through the internet. People are actually using the internet to do business. So there have been opportunities, and I don't think COVID is completely a mess.
Thank you so much. Rather interesting. But let's hear further from Mendessa.
I think technology, as my panelists alluded to, is definitely one of the biggest hallmarks that we could take away from this pandemic. You find that consumers across the board are becoming more comfortable with and confident in using the technology that has always, it's been there for a little bit already, but we now have a bit more, we trust online purchases, we trust I've seen more direct deposits to people's accounts, app-to-app transfers. So technology in today's pandemic and the integration of it on a local scale has definitely been a plus. There is nothing more incredible at the end of the month than to sit at your home in front of your computer and pay all your bills and not have to take the long lines.
True.
Yeah, so I think that is definitely a plus. Also, I think the downtime was good for, businesses and business owners to stop, sit back, and reanalyze, reflect. Am I comfortable with this direction that I'm choosing? Is this the most profitable model for my business? Are there other ways that I could be meeting my customers? And like Sunita said, you find that new business models have evolved, so to speak. So you have the online shopping, you have full businesses that are now online, on social media. And it's something that I think more persons should look towards doing. So rather than seeing maybe closing your doors permanently as this is it, you look to what is being done by other persons, which is online shopping, online payments. So I think technology is the biggest one for me.
That's very, very good. So you're basically saying that we've seen so much creativity with all of the time that we have as well.
Exactly.
Good. Mr. Sidoni, would you like to add to the opportunities that has presented as a result of COVID-19? Or Lester?
Okay, from the financial institution perspective, there have been some opportunities that we have derived from the pandemic.
True, tell us.
The advent of the pandemic. From our customers' perspective, we generally kept in touch with our customers on a regular basis as financial institution. But the pandemic has given us the opportunity to work closer with our customers, to understand the challenges and to get to know what is happening with their businesses. Our customers have been more open with us, so we provide solutions to them, and where we cannot provide solutions, we direct them in the right, we move them in the right direction to ensure that we not only hold their hands and walk them through this crisis, but ensure that they become more resilient.
True.
At the end of this pandemic, especially with their businesses.
True.
We have also developed from the staff perspective, although we have our employee assistance program, COVID-19 has created certain anxieties and fears, and it has also affected staff. Our staff in the financial institutions are like normal people. They come from different families, and some of their families are affected by loss of income. So you find that we can discuss with them and provide guidance and support to them so that we can allure those fears and anxieties and help them feel more comfortable working through this COVID environment. We are also sensitizing them in terms of the established protocols to ensure that they can work with the customers to help them make the environment one that is more conducive, one that is safer to do businesses. In terms of our buildings, the physical structure of our buildings, our businesses were not ready
for this pandemic.
And we have to rethink, reset, readjust. So basically we have to remodel. The banks have begun remodeling the interior of the financial institutions have been remodeling the interiors of the banking halls. Also, as I mentioned earlier, establishing the protocols that are required to ensure a safe environment, the social distancing markers, and from the lines, the long lines outside, and both Sunita and Mendessa alluded to it, the online banking, convenience banking. This has created great opportunity for us. Previously, what used to happen, we had a challenge getting our customers to sign on
for the online banking.
And now there is a move towards signing on because customers want to be safe. And what we have done, we have invested in our ATMs, we have improved our mobile banking, our online banking, we provide wire transfers, and we are also investing in improving our credit and debit cards, where we are making them more contactless and chip and pin, so the whole aspect of doing business is becoming safer.
So regardless of COVID, things are evolving.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that.
The other thing I want to briefly mention, and I would allow Mr. Sidoni to go a bit further into it. COVID-19 has presented an opportunity for us to develop as financial institution a work from home policy to ensure business continuity. it has always been there, the capabilities to do that, but we have never tapped into it. And what it has shown us, that with the pandemic, people can now work from home. You can develop that policy to ensure that the business continues, and down the line in the future, where we have other maybe natural disasters,
True.
this can continue.
That is so true.
Yeah.
That is so true. Now, you mentioned something that is very important, and time is important. Also, our clients are important. And recently, I heard about this Power Hour. Is it possible to tell me a little more, to inform our viewers of what the Power Hour entails for the banks, or for the financial institutions?
Okay, previously I spoke about maintaining that contact with our customers, you know, to help them find solutions to the challenges that they are facing now. What all the financial institutions did, we came together on one day and selected an hour, which was at 2:30 to 3:30, and at the same time, we all contacted our customers to find out how did COVID affect you? What challenges do you have? How can we, as financial institutions, continue to support you? And we have gotten some very good feedback from that. And we think that as financial institutions, we are going to continue adopting this approach indefinitely.
Now I see where the power comes in, the financial institutions coming together. Wow. Cornelius, tell us a little more about the opportunities in this rainy situation, this COVID-19 pandemic. Tell us a little more about the opportunities that present themselves.
Yes, I think my fellow panelists have done a wonderful job and probably taken everything from me in terms of what I would have wanted to speak about. But I think banks in general have had to re-strategize. And so at the higher level, you find that, you know, there's a lot of strategic planning going on right now, because you have to change your business model or change your strategies to try to deal with the existing situation, to try to satisfy your customers more, to move with the changes that are happening at this point in time. And one of the main things, as mentioned by our previous speakers, is technology and digitization. Absolutely important. And they explained very well, you know, it was almost like taboo for some people to have to, you know, use their phones to find out what their balances are, to do transactions and so forth. And now, because of COVID and you know, instead of going on the long lines that's going all out in the road, they actually, you know, use the technology. And there's so much opportunities, and there's so much more coming right now. And you will certainly be seeing a lot more of technology and digitization as it relates to banking. Lester did mention the relationship aspect of it, absolutely important. And it has really created an opportunity for us to get even closer to our customers, because now more than any other time, our customers want to hear from us. They want to know that we are there with them. They want to know that we can assist them, we can advise them, and that is what we are there for. You know, I think it also creates an opportunity for programs like what we have here, because we need to educate the general public a lot more as it relates to financing and budgeting and banking and those things. And I think, you know, this is a wonderful initiative by the Bankers Association to push that sort of thing. And COVID brought that out and will bring out a lot more. Lester mentioned earlier on also the work from home policy and the work from home that was opportunity that was created by COVID. And yes, we do understand not every job within, you know, the banking sector and otherwise can be done from at home, but COVID has made us realize that there are many jobs that can be done from home. And, you know, they can be done from home with a lot more less stress, because you wouldn't have to go through the traffic, you know, it makes such a difference. Now, some people are a lot more productive at home, so the businesses themselves would assess whether or not, hey, this is an employee who could be a lot more productive at home, or if this is an employee that, hey, needs to be at work to get things done. So, you know, and the businesses have facilitated this a lot more right now. So there's a lot more laptops that you would give to your sales officers and other officers. So in case of any pandemic, in case of any emergency, you know what would happen? It is much easier now for business to continue.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Sidoni. We are due for another break. When we return, we'll be touching on a very important aspect, viewers. We are here to advise you, and the segment coming up, stay tuned. We will give you some sound advice in the midst of this pandemic.
What does coronavirus have in common with love? Both are highly contagious. Spread love, not the virus. Like you, COVID-19 loves a lime. Beach, river, or fed. Coronavirus is like these people who track every lime just to invade. The best way to put off invaders? Cancel the lime. Spread love, not the virus. Keep you and your crew corona-free. Live to lime another day.
Together let us win this war. Said we shall be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
She's been watching, waiting, wondering when the sands of time will give way to a tide of change, and for yesterday and today to become a new tomorrow. For a time when her sun can kiss the cheeks of your loved one, and her stars can twinkle in her honeymoon skies, when her earthly embrace will reassure and calm your soul. And her unique view can change your whole perspective. Proudly, she has risen to meet new challenges and to provide safe harbor to all who reach her shores. For her hopes and dreams still stand, shoulder to shoulder, a precious reminder of experiences yet to come. So, wherever your moments and memories take you, let her sense of adventure set you free. She is Saint Lucia. Let her inspire you.
Welcome back. In case you've just joined us, we're discussing Living Through Rainy Days, how to manage your money in challenging times. This panel discussion is being brought to you by the Bankers Association of St. Lucia in collaboration with NTN, powered by Flow. We are getting into our final segment before we field your questions. Please remember, viewers, to WhatsApp your questions to the contact number 460-8778, which is located to the bottom of the screen. COVID-19 would have a financial impact across the board in St. Lucia. What advice would you give to our viewers, panelists, in relation to managing your finances through this trying period? Maybe we can start with Sunita.
Thank you. As individuals, I think it's very important for us to know the importance of budgeting. We should know at all times what our expenses are, how much money we're making. If we have a decreased income, by how much has it gone down by? Is it 50%? Have you lost your job completely? You need to sit down and write exactly what your expenses are. What is discretionary spending? And it's advisable that you, as much as possible, remove discretionary spending from your budget. When I speak of that, I speak about the things we love to do that are not very important. So those of us who love to go out to dinners and who love to buy cheesecakes and have them every day, it's probably a good time now to kind of cut back on that. We need to know, really importantly, what our needs are versus what our wants are. It's very important to do that. What do you absolutely need to survive, and what it is that you can do without? The other thing I think that we also have to look at, when you look at your cash flow as an individual, is always to bring down your expenditure, but look for other ways of increasing your income. I spoke earlier about persons doing new things like face masks or doing cake baking. We now have online school going on. A lot of students probably need a little more support. So this is a great time for e-tutoring to come in, and persons can get a little more income from doing e-tutoring. So look at what are the other options as an individual. What are your skills? What are the talents that you have that you can make money from? What is it that you're really great at that somebody else would probably pay you to do for them? I think these are things that we need to do a little introspection on and see what it is that we really need to do. It's very important to prioritize your spending. So you have lost your job, or you are working on rotation. You need to know what is really important. You need to eat, so food is very important. You need a place to live, your rent or your mortgage is very important to look at. You have children, they have needs. These things are really priority, and you need to leave some things for another day. A rainy day, for the rainy days, let's prioritize we leave the rest for the sunny days where we can handle those things. So really prioritize. It's also a great time to do a lot of your own things, like grow your own food. A lot of women have lots of clothes in our closets, lots of shoes. What is it that is slightly worn that you could probably sell? What is it that you could recycle? What is it that you could reuse? Before COVID, I would probably have, I'm a thrower, so I would throw things away very quickly. I don't like clutter. I've now had to look at what can I recycle? How can I use this for another time? In terms of when you make your list for grocery, what it is that you really need that's on that list that you cannot do without. So if I go to the supermarket every 3 days, maybe we need to go every week, or maybe we need to go every 2 weeks. So these are the things that we need to look at. Grow your own food. Food is a major part of our expenses and a major part of our budget. Look at how you can grow your own food. And you don't need to have a lot of space to do that. You can use tires. You can use old drawers from your dressers. You can plant a lot of foods in there. So there are things that you can use around your home. So you don't need to have lots of space and have a huge farm, but there are a few things that you can grow that would actually cut down your grocery bill. Speak to your children about this thing. As adults, we must remember we're not the only ones who are impacted by COVID. The children are also impacted. The children's lives are also impacted. So it's very important to speak to them and let them know what's happening. Human beings and children are no different, understand things a lot better when you explain to them. So there's a reason now where I cannot buy you any brand name clothing. There's a reason now I cannot buy you any more expensive things.
You're right.
So it's having those kinds of discussions with your children to let them know. And I think one of the last things I'd probably like to alert individuals to is that when life becomes very difficult, although many of us may innovate and many of us may become creative, many of us become innovative and creative in a way that's not law-abiding. So you need to look out for scammers and extortionists. You need to look out for persons who would try to get that $5 that you really have. They also want that $5. So you need to be alert at all times about who's coming to you with what proposal and how to get that money from you. And I guess the important thing that I have done too is to speak. I've gotten so close to my banker. Is to speak to your banker and explain to them what's going on. They usually have great advice as an individual that we could use their guidance for.
Thank you so much, Sunita.
Yes.
So right now we'll move directly to the bankers who would give us a few tips on managing during this pandemic.
Okay, well, I'll give that perspective from the MSME side, the micro, small, and medium enterprises.
Thank you.
Okay. With the reduction in revenue that businesses have experienced as a result of the pandemic, they need to pay very close attention to their cash flows. Understand the cash flow, the gaps. Cash flows basically is monies coming in and out of the business. So you need to pay attention to that gap, the time that you are collecting your receivables and the time that your monies, your expenses are ready for payment. Okay? What they need to do is ensure that they have a system in place where outstanding receivables are collected in a timely manner so that there is sufficient cash available on hand so that they can make timely payments of their outstanding bills. Okay? In so doing, it will assist in avoiding additional fees and charges. MSMEs need to prioritize in terms of their spending. They need to identify what is a need or a want for the business at this particular time. Okay, and focus on the actual needs of the business. Okay, to ensure that they do not overspend. Businesses also need to create a budget and work towards maintaining their expenses within that budget. They should also focus on ways to reduce certain expenses. Like you could have, when you leave the office, you could turn off lights, you could turn off the AC, you could recycle envelopes. There are various things that you can do to cut costs.
Very good tip.
Yes. Okay. The businesses also need to, although these are difficult times, businesses need to save as little as it is. Put aside some money. And it is in keeping with saving for the rainy days, our whole theme tonight. You can use that savings as a reserve. Do not go into it. Leave it there for wet days, as we usually say. So when you really need it, then you can lean on it. Okay? In terms of investing, tracking their business performance, they should invest in some sort of accounting software, which is not too expensive. Maybe QuickBooks, or hire a part-time accountant or bookkeeper so that they can track the performance of their businesses. If they track the performance of the business properly, they can make sound financial decisions.
So it helps in managing altogether.
It helps in managing the operations of the business. It can also provide them with accurate information when they are going to the financial institutions for some loan or some credit facility. Also, with the software, businesses need to comply with tax regulations and also payments of NIC. We saw recently that there was some government program where customers were assisted via the NIC, but a number of businesses were unable to apply for that because they were not paying their NIC and taxes. So it is an opportunity for them to do that. Okay, in terms of their inventory, businesses need to adopt a system where they do not have too much inventory at this particular time on hand. You can employ maybe a JIT system, just in time, where as your clients require your product or service, or your product, you can make it available. Because in overstocking, it will it will create additional costs for the business, warehousing, and also auditing of the stock. Businesses need to ensure that they separate their personal expenses from the business expenses. A lot of our businesses today are family owned, and there is not much of a difference in terms of the personal and business expenses. What the business needs to do, or the owners need to do, is pay themselves a salary. And from that salary, you handle your personal expenses. And as the business grows, you can increase that salary if you want to, based on the actual profitability of the business. The last thing I want to say is, Sunita just echoed it, keep in touch with your bankers. We are always here for you. We are here to provide advice, any kind of support you need. Keep in touch with us. Let us know what is happening with the business. So we cannot just only provide the support, but guide you in the right direction to ensure that your business remains not only profitable, but sustainable. Thank you.
Very interesting, and some very good advice. Mendessa, would you like to add a little more to the small business aspect in terms of managing your finances?
I think Lester was looking at my notes. And Sunita forgot to say that if you need to recycle your shoes, you could bring them to shoe rehab. Just
Very
saying.
good.
I think, what the panelists have said is definitely some good advice. Now is, if ever there was a time to count your pennies as a business owner, it's now. And, growing up and at school, you learn that every cent counts. But I don't think, as a small business owner, to make it practical, all your interest rates, eventually, it could be 10 cents, it all eventually adds up. So you want to make sure that, you know what all your numbers are, what all your figures are, and that can only be achieved by being very diligent with your books. At this time, like Lester said, budgeting is definitely important, and even more so, how you manage your cash flow is critical. There's a phrase that says cash is king, and it's true. Your books could be reflecting one picture, and then you look in the bank and you're like,
you see something
else. Exactly. So you need to come up with a system, as Lester suggested. You must time your payments. You don't just, because you made $20 this week, you pay. Everything should be scheduled, and then that would be one of the ways that you start to see a little bit more movement happening with your finances. You definitely need to focus on your core, right? This is not the time for risky business. You need to find out and if you use the break period wisely, know what's driving your business. Understand all the key components of your business. Focus on your core. And like Lester said, build that relationship with your financial institution. It's like free advice, basically, because they are there to help guide you, make sound decisions. And even the discussion may not be about taking a loan. Most times the financial institutions just really want to ensure that you manage what you have so that down the line you're in a better position. Lester also said about getting somebody to, manage your books. To a small business, that might seem like, whoa, a big investment. But the good thing is, and on technology again, there are lots of free softwares, there's lots of innovative ways that we could use the technology that's available to manage our books and manage our day-to-day expenses.
Mr. Sidoni, would you like to just add a little prior to our break on some advice you would give to our viewers on managing your finances?
Yes, so I'll probably just look at it from a different perspective because everybody spoke about budgeting, very important, and prioritizing and looking at your expenses, but there are a few things that you have to ensure that you maintain. You protect your assets. So things like your insurances, as much as I'm not pushing, for insurance, but your insurance is key. You have to keep that because you don't want a double jeopardy situation. You're already facing things bad, and now, something happens. So things like that. We spoke also about savings, absolutely critical. Even if whatever you could save, still try to save it. And I just want to talk quickly about a lot of people benefited from the moratoriums where their net cash may have been even more than what it was before. And some of those people were able to put that cash into good use. And if the moratoriums have to continue, I want people to look at that very closely. If you do that, make sure you do something very productive, whether it's your children's school, whether it's, refurbishing your house, whatever it is, but something productive, not just spending wildly. Yes.
Thank you so much. You've all given us some very good financial tips, and I know that our viewers will definitely appreciate sound financial health right here from the bankers and from the remainder of our panelists. We are due for another break. However, when we return, we will get right into our question and answer segment. Viewers, be sure to send your questions via the WhatsApp number to the bottom of the screen, 460-8778. This is the time to ask your questions. Our bankers, the panelists, we have someone from our personal team and from our business banking section who is willing to give you this advice freely. Feel free to send your questions. We will be right back after our break for our final segment, the question and answer segment.
Hi, I'm Jim Joseph, president of the Bosiju Community Group. We believe St. Lucia can win the war against the coronavirus, and here's how. Every community in St. Lucia must mobilize, coordinate, monitor, and support residents the way we would before, during, and after a natural disaster. Identify volunteers in your community, assign them roles, and deploy them. Ensure your elderly and vulnerable understand all protocols. Help relatives, shield them from unnecessary contact with others. Identify those recently unemployed and vulnerable neighbors living alone. Put systems in place to filter updates from official sources throughout your community. Promote the hotline number 311. If it takes a village to raise a child, then all of us can come together to defend the village against the coronavirus. Let's do it.
Together let us win this war. Said we shall be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
We are at war with the virus, ready to harm us. Panic is not the answer. We can win this together. Often use hand sanitizer. Better yet, use soap and water.
We must protect each other if we are to beat this corona.
Together let us win this war. Be a soldier for St. Lucia. Together let us win this war. Be a soldier, together we can beat this corona.
So you don't become the next case. Avoid touching your face. I'm sure you've been told so. Handshakes and hugging are a no.
Advice, give you the please. Cover your mouth and your nose if you cough or sneeze.
Practice social distancing and avoid large social gatherings.
Together let us win this war. Be a soldier for St. Lucia. Together let us win this war. St. Lucia be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
For further information, please contact the hotline at 311 or the Bureau of Health Education at 468-5349.
Viewers, welcome back. We are here discussing living through rainy days, how to manage your money in challenging times. We are at our question and answer segment where we have chosen questions from our viewers and present them to the panelists. We will direct this question to the bankers as per our viewers. We are advised to use the internet more for our banking. What assurance do you have from banks that our monies are secure from cyber criminals? Lester, Mr. Sidoni?
Banks, of course, in everything there is a level of risk. However, the banks have put a lot into the modernization of internet banking to ensure that there are safety protocols in place. The banks are very serious on that. We have IT departments. We get assistance from vendors overseas to make sure that the various protective measures are put in place so that there is no compromise of the system. And so I think that generally we've come a long way, and there's a lot more confidence now from customers in terms of the safety and security. So for example, some banks only allow you to do transactions within one of your accounts to the next. Some other banks may allow you to do transactions to another account. But there is this protection mechanism in place there where, you're not too exposed. As much as possible, we try to avoid that. Lester, I'm not sure if you have anything that you can add on that.
I think you basically covered it. We as financial institutions, we would, in implementing any level of service or product to our customers, we would ensure that all the due diligence is done to ensure that it is tightening, it is secure. And we have our ISD team who we work very closely with to ensure that any breaks or any attempts are quickly dealt with speedily. So basically, we can give the customers the assurance that our online or internet service system is secure.
Thank you, Lester.
And I just want to say also that there's scheduled training for staff, to make sure that we do the right things, that the right monitoring is done, to ensure that the safety within the system is certainly there. And our IT departments would, the viewers could get more information from the bank, from our IT department perspective, and they would have, the technical components. They could speak to that a little better in terms of really assuring our customers that that channel is not just a convenient channel, but it's also a safe channel.
Thank you very much for your feedback.
I just wanted to add as well, even as a consumer, sometimes you can allow notifications. So I may do a transfer from my personal account to another bank, and I get a SIM message saying, did you perform this transaction? Or even an email to say, hey, if this wasn't you, check it out. So that's one. Also, I think roping it into a business a small SME, any business that is performing transactions online. Once you sign up for your online banking, everything can be tracked. So if you made a payment to a vendor, one of your vendors online, and you don't see it reflected on your on your statement online, on your online banking, then that's a phone call to the bank. So I think it all boils back to how diligent you are in monitoring and keeping track of your day-to-day transactions.
Very good. Very good.
Thanks
the viewers will definitely appreciate this feedback.
And you would also find that the banks call quite a lot. So the banks, for example, would want you to notify them if you're going overseas. So if they see transactions on your account that, hey, they were notified that you would be out of Ireland. Also, you might be inconvenienced a little sometimes where some transactions are blocked because, they're seeing a transaction coming from Russia and you never give notification of that, or some strange transaction on your, and unless the banks can get your authorization, they might block that transaction. So there are a number of measures that we try to put in place to make sure that things are as safe as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Sidoni. Viewers, the banks have told you that definitely you are secure throughout this pandemic with the online banking products. Second question, a viewer stated, I like the idea of the power hour, my apologies, where banks are simultaneously reaching out to their customer. Do you see this initiative continuing well after COVID?
Well, actually, I did mention in my discussion that we would continue this indefinitely because it goes a long way in building our relationships with our customers and maintaining that contact to ensure that we know exactly what is happening with them and being in a position to provide solutions to them so they do not come to us at a time when things have gone bad. We would know from the onset. So as I've said before, it is something that it definitely will continue.
I just want to weigh in a little on that because I don't want anybody to get the impression that is only, the power hour. That is when we have maintained contact with our customers. This is a continuous thing in terms of maintaining contact with our customers. And as I mentioned earlier, COVID has given us, even more impetus to be in contact, remain in contact with our customers. It's just that particular activity, we can continue it as a joint activity that could be very impacting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, panelists. We have another question here for the bankers. Given the fact that interest rates are generally very low on savings products, any suggested investment opportunities at this time during this pandemic?
Well, I would say they're a bit limited. People could always be innovative and go into their own investments. There's lots of innovation, as we mentioned, but in terms of actually investing in instruments, there are some financial institutions among the financial institutions in St. Lucia where there may be investment banking departments. And, in such departments, you can invest in a number of instruments, some of them being treasury bills, that's shorter term government paper, or bonds that are longer term government paper. And depending on the term and the level of risk associated with it, the returns will be commensurate. So there are some very high paying investments in terms of bonds. You probably could get bonds right now at 4.5%, 5%, even 6%, depending on the number of years, over a 7-year period, for example. So there is that mechanism in place and it is available, but it depends on your risk appetite. So if you have the appetite for that, and there are some people who have disposable income and they believe that in 5 years' time things are going to be generally good, then they go and they get a 6% on their investment at this point in time, over time. So that is definitely available.
So some of the financial institutions do have investment
Absolutely,
opportunities.
some of them do.
Okay. So let's move right along to our question for the panelists. What plans or programs do the banks have to prepare their clients to withstand a future pandemic?
I think we've learned from example. from this particular situation. And one of the things that I'm sure the banks will continue to do is to assess that situation, do postmortems, see what are the good practices, so that if there is any eventuality of that nature again, that we would know exactly what are the things that we can do. The situation may be a little different, but I think the general principle will be the same in terms of how we assist our customers. So I think that the experience now is very important in preparing us for anything to come in the future.
Very good. Sunita, Mendessa, would you like to add to that?
I was going to say, I think that question goes outside of just the banking arena. I think everybody is going to learn, from this pandemic. And like I said earlier, it kind of snuck up on us. We were ready for all kinds of disasters, everything except for a pandemic. So even for a business owner, you know now how critical it is to manage your reserves, and almost that you would never want to be caught in a position where you're not ready for prepared for at least the next 3 months of your business operation, if nothing else.
I'll make a confession now that I am one of those persons at the very beginning who criticized the financial institutions, because as an economist, I would have looked at what happened in prior crisis times, and I would have said, why are the financial institutions not stepping up yet? Why are they not coming up with any innovative solutions yet? And I have quite a few bankers as friends who would have came to me and explained to me that, don't worry, something is coming. And I must say, as a customer and as a normal solution, that I'm quite pleased with how the financial institutions have actually used technology to really reach out to us. The impact is not as terrible as I thought it would have originally been, because I've found that there's quite a bit of innovation in the products that are offered to the banks. I'm currently doing some business with the bank, and I'm not hampered in any major way. And I'd just like to congratulate the financial institutions and really stepping up. And maybe sometimes we need critics to really say something is happening, but they've really stood up to the times.
You are right. You're so right.
Thank you for that, Sunita.
Viewers, thank you so much for your questions. The association is committed to answering all of your questions. For those that we have not answered this evening, one of the representatives from the banks will contact you and have a one-on-one discussion as it relates to your financial queries, concerns, or a general discussion. Panelists, I would like to ask, are there any final remarks? Would you like to leave our viewers with anything prior to ending our session this evening, our very interesting session this evening?
I can indicate. As financial institutions, I just want to reiterate that we are here to work with our customers. We are dependable. They can always remember that they can call us whenever, come in and speak with their bankers whenever necessary, as we help them not only work through this crisis, but to ensure that their businesses, and I'm speaking from a MSME perspective, their businesses become not only survive the pandemic, but become more resilient and sustainable going forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Mendessa, would you like to leave our viewers with any sound advice?
I think to close, I would wish that the SME community we're more mindful on how we manage our resources, and we prepare ourselves and prepare our businesses for any unforeseen events. I think it's a time for us to rally together, be innovative, re-strategize, just to keep up with the changing times, and to focus on our strengths. And to close, I think it's also important that we stick together, because the cries of one's business owner to the next is normally just the same. So you want to ensure that we keep together to ensure that there's strength in numbers. Pretty much unity is strength. Yeah.
You work together. You support each other.
Yes, we support each other.
Thank you, Mendessa. Mr. Sidoni, any final words for our viewers?
Sure. As Lester mentioned, the financial institutions are there for you during those rainy days. We're in it together, and we're really there to assist you. The second wave of the moratorium will come through, and when it comes through, we want to make sure that you choose wisely. If you don't need to take it, don't take it. But if it is going to help your cash flow situation, then you could discuss it with your bank, and we could go along with it as required. I think also there's an opportunity for persons to look at restructuring their facilities, probably consolidating their debts and getting a consolidated loan at a lower rate than what obtains right now with them. There are some of the financial institutions have campaigns and low rates for consolidations at this point in time, and I really think our viewers should look at that. I think they should also look for opportunities. There are opportunities in adversity, and I really think so. And just a reminder to budget.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Ms. Danielle.
I would just like to tell the individuals out there, just the normal solution, that we all know, and we're all going through the same thing, that it's really difficult times now. Don't despair. There's always assistance somewhere in the community. So if you feel that it's a little too much for you, there's always somebody that you can always go to look for assistance right now. It may be just somebody that you need to speak to, somebody who could guide you, but the message is really not to despair, not to think that bad times don't last always, and they will always improve. And during this time, you must really look for where your passion is, what it is that really resides in you. This is a great time to look for what it is that you're really good at and try to build on that. So the message is just to hold tight, things will get better.
Thank you so much, panelists. Thank you so much. I would like to remind our viewers that October is Financial Information Month. It is a partnership with the financial institutions in St. Lucia and the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. This year, the Bankers Association, consisting of 11 financial institutions, have a packed agenda as part of their strategy of public engagement and education. I would like to give you a snippet before we leave of some of the activities thus far. Please note that the focus groups are clients, the community, and employees. On the 28th of September, a luncheon was held right here on NTN. The official launching of Financial Information Month with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank was released on the 1st of October. Parts of the initiatives also included donations to the most vulnerable, the elderly. On the 6th of October 2020, the financial institutions conducted a power hour where lenders provided financial advice to their clients in times of crisis. A radio interview was held on the 13th, and another will be held on the 19th. Please stay tuned and listen. To discuss online banking opportunities, virtual discussions will also take place to educate both staff and the general public. An essay writing competition will be held, and our students will also be impacted. Currently, the students have been engaged, and we're asking to stay tuned for more about this competition. Once again, on behalf of the Bankers Association of St. Lucia, we would like to thank you, our panelists, for taking the time to impact knowledge during this most trying time in modern history. We would like to thank you, our viewers, for taking the time to listen as we go on with this initiative and navigate this pandemic together. In closing, the Bankers Association of St. Lucia would like to remind you to remain safe and adhere to all protocols. A special thank you and do have a good evening.
FIM, Financial Information Man. Hear the story about your Bankers Association, how they planning so they can get you through this recession. In this time of panic, educating you in this pandemic through rainy days too. Now it's online. Step up to the plate. Come talk to us. We'll open the gate. Using the internet as the new gateway for the new normal. So work with us. We turning the frown you have upside down. Financial Information Man. I am Financial Information Man. I am Financial Information Man.